صل على محمد وآل محمد.
غل یہ مدینے میں تھا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. غل یہ مدینے میں تھا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. چھائی غموں کی گھٹا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. غل یہ مدینے میں تھا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. رتبہ شہ زماں سمجھانا ظالم جہاں. رتبہ شاہ زماں سمجھانا ظالم جہاں. دے دیا زہر وغا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. زہر نے چھوڑا اثر، ہو گیا ٹکڑے جگر. زہر نے چھوڑا اثر، ہو گیا ٹکڑے جگر. ہونٹوں پہ دم آ گیا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. ہونٹوں پہ دم آ گیا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. ہے یہ مصیبت عظیم، ہو گئے صادق یتیم. ہے یہ مصیبت عظیم، ہو گئے صادق یتیم. ہر سو ہے ماتم بپا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. ہر سو ہے ماتم بپا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. درد کا طوفان اٹھا، بچوں نے لی ہچکیاں. درد کا طوفان اٹھا، بچوں نے لی ہچکیاں. گھر سے جنازہ چلا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. گھر سے جنازہ چلا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. اور آخری دو بند. گریاں ہیں جنوں ملک، ٹوٹا غموں کا فلک. گریاں کنا جنوں ملک، ٹوٹا غموں کا ہے فلک. گل ہوئی شمع ہدا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. گل ہوئی شمع ہدا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. ہم سے مجیب حزیں، چھٹ گئے شاہ مبیں. ہم سے مجیب حزیں، چھٹ گئے شاہ مبیں. روتے ہیں اہل عزا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. روتے ہیں اہل عزا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. غل یہ مدینے میں تھا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. چھائی غموں کی گھٹا، ہو گئے باقر شہید. پر محمد آل محمد صلوات. ہے نہیں، کچھ نہیں ہے. بول ہے اب دعوت دیتا ہوں مولانا علی عباس رضوی صاحب کو کہ وہ زیب ممبر ہوں. پر محمد وآل محمد بلند صلوات.
الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Amma ba'd. Firstly, my apologies for being ever so slightly late. Tonight we're gathered here to commemorate the Shahada of our fifth Imam alayhi salam. And because of which, as we did the last time we were together, I think it's important to focus on the life and times of this Imam. You know, when you go through every phase of the Imam's life, especially a wide variety of the character of the Imam, many things come forward. Many secrets are written in just the kalam of the Imam, which for us is important today. Look, as you can see around you, you're living in a period of time where Islamophobia is at the highest it's been. This kind of bigotry, xenophobia has not been seen before in the history of Europe after World War II, like you're seeing today. Racism takes place in a football pitch. The next day, you find people's support to say this is racist. Question is this: the people are good people. Why is it that there's no support for Muslims? Is because whenever the media pushes Muslims, they always do a negative then a positive. These people are oppressors, but we should give Muslims a second chance. So the idea is that when 90% of your media and everything around you is negative towards Muslims, the question is this: what do we do in this time? You've got children, you've got wives, you've got sisters at home. The amount of attack that takes place on Muslim women, though we live in a world which believes in feminism, is unbelievable. The biggest collateral damage today are women in hijab, because they're the ones who are being attacked for what they wear, for what they do. So when we're in this situation, what's our responsibility? What can we take from the life of the Imam? At least know one thing: it isn't as bad as it was. In the time of the Abbasis or the Umayyads, it was very bad. The problem though is this, that if we believe in a world of modernity, tomorrow is meant to be better than today. Why is it that today is even worse than it was yesterday and the day before that? In fact, we're going in reverse. We're not going forward. Economically, you've seen, go back 5 years and see, today you go to any supermarket, there's shortages of food. In terms of your pharmaceutics, they're stuck on the borders. So in every field, be it primary, secondary, tertiary industry, what you're finding is that economically we've gone backwards. Inflation has increased, taxes are going to increase. Surplus, if you look at food stock, diminishing. Oil rising. So all around you're worse off than you were, basically, before Brexit. In fact, you're better off before Brexit now. Hit the pandemic. You living in England have got more of a problem than our brothers and sisters in Canada or America or even Europe. You know why? Because nothing has changed for them. For you, everything has changed because your entire economic and social system has changed because of Brexit. So not only do you have one disadvantage of the virus that everybody else does in Europe and America, but you have a second disadvantage. Your entire economic system has changed. You have very little deals on the table, and basically you're about to tank, right? We are, as they say, a country which is bankrupt, but apparently it's illegal to say that, so I won't say it. But that's where we are. That's where we're sitting. But it's okay. We can survive if we're one nation. But now look at England and see. Divided nation. Divided in terms of race, divided in terms of religion. You don't have that in Scotland. Scotland is a united nation, and it doesn't discriminate on the basis of religion. But over here in England it does, unfortunately. London, not so much. You go to the Midlands, and there's a lot of it there. So as a Muslim, what do? When, for example, when your local MP says that, Muslims are very religious people, but we don't agree by the fact that they protest outside schools. Now look, one school, 5 guys, 3.5 million Muslims, and people are characterizing. I was listening to a talk, was invited to a private talk in the city of London. The person was a former MP whose portfolio once upon a time was Middle East. The amount of Islamophobic things he said without even realizing that he was saying stuff Islamophobic within 30 minutes was obnoxious. So I put in a complaint. I haven't got a reply yet. They'll reply, friends of mine. Anyway, let's see what happens. The fact is this, when you're sitting in this atmosphere, for me and you it's fine. When I look at these children, what's their future? You've lived your life. We're at that age now. We've got less years ahead than have gone by. But when you look at these children, when we look at the future of Islam, then you begin to worry. Something needs to happen very quickly that's going to preserve them, that's going to save their life, that's going to save their families, that's going to save their honors. We as Shias, I'm not talking about over Islam, I'm talking about Shias. 1400 years, you've never oppressed anybody, you've never attacked anybody, you've never started any wars. It isn't for us to attack people. And you'll see the system of the Imam in a minute. When people swore at him, he smiled at them. Right? You know the system. I don't need to tell you. So we're peace-loving. In fact, we're the most peaceful community because we have less blood on our hands than any other community does. In essence, if you look at it historically, we have less. We never had an empire to plunder and loot people. We were oppressed in the Islamic world, and everywhere we've been oppressed very much. Because of other Muslims, we're taking the drop for them. And if you go into the Middle East or war-torn countries, you find that the very terrorists are killing us first. So we've had more people killed. And then after that, we get blamed for their rubbish. That's fine. For us, as we grow older, it's okay. Question is, what are our kids going to do? How are our kids going to improve? What's the way forward for them? It's a question, right? What's going to happen to you? You can do whatever you want, but they've got a life to live. You've lived yours. Over here, if you look at the makeup of this room, either 50% are over 40, right? 10% are over 30, and the rest of them are still under 20. So what are these 20%, these 20 under 20s going to do? They've got a life to live. Are they going to be demoralized? Because sometimes what happens is that you beat somebody down so much that they're demoralized completely. So what do? They leave their religion. Or when you demoralize somebody, they go to the other extreme. We can't afford them to become extremists one way or extremists the other way. We need to make sure that they're in balance. Question is how do you do that? Let me give you a tradition. And again, what I've done is I've written all the traditions down with the sanad and everything. So let me read it out to you. I was looking today. I'll read you out a tradition from the 5th Imam, then I'm going to come on to the life of the 5th Imam. Allama Mustanbit brings forward a very beautiful tradition. He says a time is going to come, right? 5th Imam is saying, when you're going to be put into your graves, because all of us are, we're all going in that location. Your prime land is actually there. Once you're in your grave, say salawat, please. That time is coming. You go into your grave. Tradition says that 6 beings of light are going to enter your grave if you're a believer. One's going to be next to your head, the other one next to your foot. One above, one below, one right, one left. So all of these peoples of light. Then the Imam continues and the Imam says, he says at that stage what you'll see is that the one standing on the head will be Nurani. That light of that person will be so much that it will encompass the light of all the others. And even if there's adhab about to happen, this one above on the head will stop the adhab from taking place. So at that moment, all the other ones, all the other 5, are going to ask, who are you? What is it about you that's so nurani? How comes you're eclipsing everybody else like the sun? Who are you? What's your story? At that point, the one with light behind, what he's going to do is he's going to say, before I introduce myself, why don't you all introduce yourself? Right? So the hadith says, it says, the one on the right is going to say, I'm their prayers, I'm the salah. Now, remember, all of these are going to help you. If they're going to help you in your grave, you know what that means? That means that you better make sure that it's up to scratch in this world. Because not only do they help you in your grave, they help you in this world as well. We don't understand it, but you'll see they do. People who pray over a rock, for example, Allah will always open up a path for them whenever they're stuck. But anyway, without going deeper, so the one on the right says, I'm salah. The one on the left says, I'm zakat. Zakat, purification, basically. Purification of mal. You have zakat. You have 20% zakat, which is known as khums. Khums, 1/5. That is zakat. Because khums just means 1/5. So when people say, do Shias give zakat? No, of course you give zakat. You just give 20%. You're not giving 2.5 or 5% or 7.5. You're giving 20%. So you give zakat, but it's 20%. It says the one opposite, he will say, I'm fasting. The one on the back will say, I'm hajj. The one on the feet will say, I'm the good deeds that this person performed for the other brother. So as important as prayers and fasting and hajj and zakat is, it's also important to help one another. Because it's going to help you. At that moment, the one standing there says, now let me introduce myself. The one on the head. He says, I'm Wilaya. I'm the one who was created because of the ishq and the wilaya that this person had. And that tells you something. That tells you this, that in your grave, wilaya is important. And at the same time, in this world, wilaya is important. So the first port of entry for anything that you want to save yourself from, the most important thing is develop wilaya. Question is this, how do we understand what wilaya is? How do we enhance the love in our heart for the Ahlul Bayt? Is when you discuss the ma'arif of Ahlul Bayt. Is when you discuss the spirituality of Ahlul Bayt. Now let me take you to another tradition. And I picked these from about every single tradition you can imagine lined up. Now you got to look at this one. This one fascinated me completely. This one's from Jabir, Jofi. He's a Yemeni. One of the Sahib Asrar of the Imam. Because Imam have two companions. One type of companion is arm. The Prophet of God had arm companions. But one are special ones. He teaches them specially. Here the sixth Imam. So they're having a discussion. So Jabir looks up and looks at all the other companions. He says, Allah has graced me. Blessings, hamd and sana be to Allah. Right? Why? He says, because Allah gave me ma'arif of Ahlul Bayt. And this was a minna upon me. Right? This was a grace upon me. And then he says that, and Allah has shown me the fadail and the fadil of Ahlul Bayt, and this was ilham upon me. And then thirdly, he continues and he says that Allah has given me the ability to obey the Ahlul Bayt. And this was tawfiq from Allah. Let's break this down. It's a long tradition. And if I go into it, take me literally into prayer time. That tells you something. Ma'rifah that you have, irfan ma'rifah, is a ni'mah of Allah. You cannot get it without doing shukr. Because ni'mah only increases when you do shukr. This is why you notice on the day of Rabi', what are you going to say? Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'alana min al-mutamassikina bi walayati aliyin amir al-mu'mineen alayhi salam. So the first thing is this, ma'rifah of Ahlul Bayt, you've got to give thanks. This is why, if you notice the hadith, right, there's a logic behind this. When Ahlul Bayt say, whenever you feel that ishq spark up, go and thank your mothers. Don't thank your mothers. They're the ones who put it into you. That's the. This is. Have you noticed why Allah says the haqq of your mother is more than a. Rasulullah says what? Mother, mother, mother. Why? 3 times mother. Because of a mother, whether she's. This is the other thing, weird thing. Whether your mother is Sunni, Shia, Kafir, Hindu, Sikh, atheist. If you're follower of the Ahlul Bayt, it means she's done something that's put the wilaya. And that means, you know what that means? That means there's a purity about her. That if the right atmosphere was there, she would have come onto the line of Ahlul Bayt. And even then, if her children are followers of Ahlul Bayt, 99.9% of the time on the Day of Judgment, Imam will say, you come through as well. You know why that is? Because the right atmosphere didn't present it. And you know that because her children are Shia, followers of Ahlul Bayt. But they didn't present the right atmosphere to her. Had it presented, she also would have been there. And Allah is not unjust. Allah says, if this is what you've given, then you come as well. So this is why, remember, whenever you feel this harar in your qalb, your mother's, she's done something. It says that her womb was pure and she was a good woman. This is the only reason why you're here and following Ahlul Bayt. Otherwise, it doesn't work like that. Second thing is this. If you're going to understand the fadila of Ahlul Bayt, fadail, people do shak in the fadail of Ahlul Bayt. Right? You notice today, all over the social media, this is wrong, that's... Jabir is saying, hey guys, you can't understand fadail of Ahlul Bayt. It has to be ilhami. Allah has to put it in your heart. But there's another hadith that says, if you don't get it, don't say, how is it possible? Say, Ahlul Bayt know better. Allah knows better. Don't deny it. Say, how's this possible? Some people start denying it because it doesn't get into their head. Not realizing your head isn't, whether you get it or not. You're not going to get it. You know why you're not going to get it? Because you're this. Ali ibn Abi Talib is Bab Madinatul Ilm. You're not going to understand him. If Ibn Abbas doesn't understand him, if Abu Dhar doesn't understand him, if Miqdad doesn't understand him, what do you understand? But I don't get, how is it possible Ali could do this? Ali could do this. The problem is you'll never understand it. You don't increase your capacity. So the question is, how does one increase the capacity? You just leave the windows open. Ventilation. I think 52,000 cases today, and we've got people who are not wearing masks. So let's keep the doors open. Let's keep the windows open. Just handle this a lot, please. You got it there? Yeah, you got to pass it up and go. Bismillah. Okay. Still Sunday is not Monday. We've got to follow the rules. Come on. We've got the masks out. Ya Allah. Another salawat, please. Come on, son, pass it quickly so you can continue. Grab a mask, son.
नारे तकबीर, नारे रिसालत, नारे हैदरी, और मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद बुलंद सलावत।
And I was at a wedding on Sunday. MashaAllah. For every 5 person who came, in 3 days, 1 of 5 positive, and every day 1 guy's dropping, 1 guy's dropping, 1 guy's dropping. 3 GPs was salam. So anyway, as we were saying. Fadail of Ahlul Bayt you can't understand. Ilham. Allah puts it in your heart. This is why sometimes when you read the same hadith 100 times, when it becomes a dhikr, when it actualizes, only then you notice that you gain something different from him. Quran, the same thing. Nahjul Balagha, the same thing. Honestly, some of the greatest scholars that I know always used to say, read Quran every day, read Nahjul Balagha every day. The same khutbah after 1 year has a different dimension. Right? Because when you're reading Nur, Allahu nur as-samawati wal ard, remember one thing. Allah says, Allahu nur as-samawati wal ard. But you know one thing? True light can never be seen. What you see around you is objects that reflect light. This is why the verse doesn't say Allah, and it stops there. It says, Allahu nur as-samawati wal ard. Mathala nurihi kamishkat fiha misbah. How do you come to understand Allahu nur as-samawati wal ard? You've got to come down to misbah. Mishkat fiha misbah. You know what that is? According to all of our tradition, that is Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. That which gives out Nur of Allah to Alam Khilqat is known as Fatima. Nurun ala Nur of the Imams. That Shajara Mubarakah. Mubarakah is the name of Fatima. Shajara is Ibrahim. La Sharaqiyyatin wa la Gharbiyya. Look at the hadith, what it says about this. Sharqi symbolizes Maryam and her son. Gharbi symbolizes Musa and his lineage. Ibrahim is going to have many children, but there's only one line, which is Nurun ala Nur, and that is the children of Fatima. Based upon that, therefore, Ilham, very important. Come to the third part. The other thing is obedience. Obedience to the Ahlul Bayt requires tawfiq. How does one stop tawfiq from coming? When they sin. How else do you stop tawfiq from coming? When you stop shukr. The most important lesson, takeaway is this. In every hal, give shukr. In every state, give shukr to Allah. In fact, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, he says, sometimes Allah will give you something. Let's say you were to get £100. He'll give you £10. If you give shukr, £20 will come. And shukr, £30. And if you stop, it stops there. Sometimes you are only to get £100, but you go into sajda and you thank Allah so much, He says, let me give you £1,000. Shukr. All of these things are required for one truly to understand. So you know what Imam now says to Jabir? So now Imam looks at Jabir, says, Jabir, you said all of these things. MashaAllah. But do you understand what ma'rifah is? Mawla, you tell me. He says there's 7 stages of ma'rifah. Then the Imam begins, and if I begin now, it's going to take a long time. So what I'll do is I'll come to this part, because we mentioned. Imam, when he teaches Jabir, there's a hadith that says, one hadith says he taught him 50,000 hadith, which he didn't teach anybody else. Another tradition says 90,000. Then Imam said to him, you're not allowed to tell anyone. One day, Jabir comes to the Imam, he says, Mawla, there's like a storm in my chest. It's burning. I don't know what to do. I need to give this information out, it's too heavy on me. He says, if that's the case, go to the desert, dig a hole, put your head in the hole, and at that point say, Qala Muhammad ibn Ali. And then after that, start talking. Talk to the ground. Talk with him there, but whatever you do, don't reveal these secrets. Know something, that there are certain secrets which come down, even to this day, which are spread from chest to chest. Not everybody has them. Warafah, for example, they give things chest to chest. You may ask, where is it written? It's not written. Because he got it from, and that person got it from, and the chain goes all the way back. Why? There's always a qayd, a shart, that only those people can gain this knowledge who are ahl of this knowledge. This is why you notice that not every knowledge is for everyone. Not every discussion is for everyone. Only specific, certain people can understand. And this is why there are many of Imam's sermons which people just don't get. Because they're not there for everyone. Now that in this age of PDF, You've got so many things which have been opened up. The problem is, though, that not everybody can understand everything. So anyhow, coming back to this tradition. You notice that when the Imam speaks to certain of his companions, he speaks differently from other companions. So look, firstly, in a time where the Imam was oppressed, in the time where there was a lot of issues, what you find with the Imam is he never discriminated. For me and you and children and everyone, the one thing that we must remember is this: however bad a time gets, be one who appeal to everyone. This is why I've always said, in this time, interfaith is important. To be able to spread your message to others and to show that you're inviting is important. This is what the Imam did. Even if somebody swears at you, I'll give you an example. In the hadith it says a Christian comes to you and says, "Are you baqir?" Meaning, are you a cow? What would Imam say? He says, "No, I'm not." He says, "I'm baqir." Imam doesn't lose it. Turn around and then he insulted his mother. He says, "Your mother's a cook?" He says, "No, my mother had expertise. She was an amazing cook." Then he continues and said, "You're the son of a servant whose mother had a bad name and bad character." Astaghfirullah. Imagine saying that to the Imam. What does the Imam here say? He only replies in one way. He says, "If you're truthful, may God forgive her. And if you're lying, may God forgive you." At that point, that Christian said, "You're on the haqq." The ability to not have your ego and to be able to remember the cause and to turn things around, that is the sign of a Shia. And here your Imam is teaching you that. Why? Because he knows that this heart only has one thing in it, and that's Allah. Funnily enough, if I may say ironically, you've all heard of Ayatollah Said Abdul Karim Kashmiri, the famous Arif. Today his son called me, Said Ali Kashmiri. And I asked him a question. I said, "Sir, tell me something. What is the one thing that your father said to you?" He said, "You will not find this written anywhere because my father told me." He said, "Before my father went from this world, he said to me," he says, "Son, qalb is the haram of Allah. Qalb is Baytullah. Make sure you don't let anything in there but Allah, or that which is attached to Allah. This heart is only there for Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, nothing else. Anything else comes close to it, let it go. Look in and see. And when you have only Allah there, then peace flows." Honestly, for 1 second, if you just focus onto your heart and say, even if you were just to say to yourself that, "Allah, this is for you, nothing will touch it," peace flows. Because when your heart is controlled by Allah, its manifestation in this world is that your heart is in the hands of Hujjatullah. Because Imam says here in the hadith, he says, "We are the Jalal of Allah, and we are the Jamal of Allah, and we are the side of Allah, and we are the eyes." What is he saying? The door that takes you to Allah is known as Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Look, there was a lot that I wanted to say, but I can see that we're coming into namaz time. I'm just going to mention two things. Two traditions from Imam al-Baqir, and that's it. It's been a long time we haven't been together. The one thing I've missed, maybe some of you have missed the same, is together mourning for Imam. When you're at home, shall I tell you something? You know what I felt? I felt that the Imam must be ghareeb, because there's no one to cry for him. When you're sitting at home yourself and you're crying for, imagine when we all come together, our brain is there, millions of people crying. If you're happy, everybody's, all of a sudden for millions of people, you're sitting in your home, you can't go to the majlis, TV is on, you're listening to a majlis, and when you sit there in your loneliness, you think, how must the Imam feel? Master of the times, cries by himself, recites Naha by himself, and then his grandfather, so who's going to console him? Today, God forbid, one of your family members passes away, 20 people are going to come to you and hug you. They're going to give condolences. You know why? Because human nature is such. We want somebody to come and hug us. Somebody to hug us, somebody to say it's going to be all right. Imagine that son who has no one to come and hug him. This is the true meaning of gharib. Gharib is a person who has nobody else. 2 hadith then. Somebody comes to the Imam alayhi salam and he asks him, he says, we've heard that before Imam Hussein died, Zuljana was doing tawaf of Imam Hussein's body. Is that correct? 5th Imam was there. He says it's correct. Zuljana was going around the body of Imam Hussein to protect him. Imam Hussein had fallen. As Zuljana was going around, he would look up at the army of Yazid and say, La'an on you people who have killed the son of their prophet. Zuljana then goes up to Imam Hussein and he whispers something into his ear. And this is what Imam Baqir says. Imam Baqir says he whispered this. He says, Mawlai, just find a little bit of energy that you can put yourself on my back. I'll take you so far away that no human can come and attack you. Imam had tears in his eyes. He said, look, this animal feels so much for the Imam. Imam Hussein said to Zuljana, says, if you want to do something, my sister is waiting. Go to my sister and tell her that I've fallen. They say Zuljana comes towards the tents. As he comes close, even before Sayyidah Zainab could make it there, Hadith says a 4-year-old girl comes running. And she comes up to Zuljana and she says, Zuljana, just tell me one thing. Was my father thirsty when he fell onto the floor? Or did they give him some water? So she looks up and she says, even if you don't answer, I know that they must have cut my father because I can see cut marks on your mane. And I know that my father fell on the ground because your reins have been cut. And Zuljana, the arrows in your body, I know my father must have been covered in arrows. And then she turns around and says, Zuljana, I can see that there are tears in your eyes. They must have oppressed my father. This person then continues. This is Mawla, Sister Imam al-Baqir. He says, and what else did you see? He says, there was a time that came that even my father couldn't take it anymore. He says, what was that time? He says, that time was in Sham. Hadith is lengthy. But you know the first thing it was? If you look at the entire list of 7 things, the first thing is this. It says that my aunts were paraded. To the extent that Imam Zain al-Abidin says, my ghayra couldn't take it. I looked up at the head of my father. I said, Father, please start reciting Quran so I can distract these men from looking at my... Imam Hussein started to recite Surah Kahf. It says, as Imam began to recite, Imam Zain al-Abidin looks towards the ladies, says, ladies, go quickly. One lady replies, son, what can I go? These enemies have got even our camels and horses. We can't even move forward. I'm not going to narrate the whole thing. I'll just narrate to you one thing. Imam remembered this for all of his life. Time came when he was leaving. Tonight, this night is poisoned. By Fajr time, he leaves this world. As he's poisoned, Hadith says, he calls the 6th Imam. He says, son, I want you to do something for me. I want only you as my son to give me a ghusl and kafan. And I want you to put me in the grave. And then after that, here's some money. Hajis are coming to Mina. I want every year for the next 7 years that my majlis should be held. As you can see today, that sunnah continues. Every person on the 9th, 7th, 8th and 9th of this month will recite Masab of Imam Hussein. Why? So that nobody can forget. Wasiyat is given. Who's it given to? That 6th Imam whose father was in Karbala. Now for 1 second, think and see. There was another son as well, and his father was also giving him wasiyah. What was he saying? He's saying, son, Tell all of my Shia, if only you were here in Karbala, you would have seen how me, hungry and thirsty, took a 4-month-old baby and took it to get water. Say, Shiati, oh my Shia, if only you were there to see. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Matam Hussein.
کافر نے کم سنی میں کھیلے ستم تمام، کافر نے کم سنی میں کھیلے ستم تمام، کافر نے کم سنی میں جھیلے ستم تمام، کافر نے کم سنی میں جھیلے ستم تمام۔ یہ ہے گواہ کربل، یہ ہے گواہ کربل، یہ ہے اسیر شام، کافر نے کم سنی میں جھیلے ستم تمام، کافر نے کم سنی میں جھیلے ستم تمام۔